This is High School Not So Much a Musical, a podcast that takes you on a ride through the peaks and valleys of a high school journey. Here are your presenters, Nitin Jaladanki and Ayush Agarwal.
Hello everybody and welcome back to High School Not So Much a Musical. Today we are joined with Mr. Rob Beltz, who is 59 years young, a two-time cancer survivor with a passion for teaching and life, and he's also a professional musician. So, Mr. Beltz, could you please introduce yourself about who you are, what you do, what you've done over the last few years, your teaching background, etc.?
Oh, I'd be delighted to. First of all, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. My name is Rob Beltz, and I have been teaching in the classroom for 25 years. I've taught everything from kindergarten through fifth grade, and fifth grade is where I've been teaching for the last several years. My background for my education, I got my Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology from CSU Stanislaus here in California, and I got my multiple subject teaching credential through National University. And I've been teaching with Merced City School District for, about the last 24 years. So I've been at it for a while.
Yeah, that's great. And the question that I had for you is that, you obviously have an experience in music, but I wanted to know if you were able to implement your music and bring it into your class or your classroom, maybe make your classroom more energetic with music. Was that a thing that you were able to do?
Oh, yes. Thank you. That's an excellent question. What I've done is, because as you probably know, the arts are kind of taking a back seat. Everything is kind of all pivotal on state test scores, right? So what I've done is I created my own musical appreciation program, and I created my own little syllabus, and it's called The History of Music. And what I do is I break down the genres: blues, jazz, folk, country, rock, heavy metal, hip hop, and I give the kids a little syllabus. And what I do is I put together a bunch of YouTube videos, and I introduce them to each one of the genres, kind of give them a background on how music was created. And I also have a keyboard in the classroom that I use to demonstrate what notes are and keys are, chords. And I have my bass guitar in there as well. It's been a little difficult with the COVID situation because I haven't quite been able to continue that, but the kids really enjoy it. And I show them little YouTube videos and we talk about it. And I try to expose them to different genres of music that they might not ever listen to. Some of them may really be rock and roll fans. And then when they hear and see like a Duke Ellington video from the 1940s, then some of them develop an appreciation for jazz, and it's really exciting. I really enjoy that part of it. I'm looking forward to getting back into that. It's just been kind of crazy with the whole COVID situation, trying to, keep things together, keep all the wheels of the train on the track, so to speak. But that is one of my joys. And as far as I know, there's only myself and another dear friend of mine who has a school of rock at one of the local middle schools. And he actually has the kids playing music and instruments, and they go and do little showcases, which is cool. And that's something that I would love to do someday with our elementary kids.
I personally love that because I've been playing guitar, and I've just been playing guitar, acoustic and electric guitar, for the last 4 or 5 years now. And the one thing I regret, or that I've been regretting, is that I wish I started sooner. That's why I go and I teach my cousin. He's around 10 years old right now. So how old you'd be when you're in elementary school? And I go and I teach him guitar, a couple of chords and stuff like that. So I can spark his interest in music at a young age. So that's why I think what you're doing is great. You have your bass guitar, your piano, and then you're introducing these children at such a young age to all the different genres of music. But now that we've talked about your music aspect, I want to know a little bit more about your teaching, your teaching experience. So we learned that you had a 35-page pamphlet that goes through some of your experience and tips for educators. So could you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, sure. Thank you. And I want to sing your praises for hanging in there with music and also teaching your cousin. I think that's terrific. And just as a little sidebar, if it makes you feel any better, I did not start learning the bass, pardon me, until I was almost 23. So I hear you on the part about, wishing I could have started younger, but you know what? We make up for lost time. So kudos to you, my friend. As far as the pamphlet, the booklet I've recently published, I always wanted to write a book. And I was telling my fifth graders the other day, when I was 12 years old in seventh grade, I said, I'm going to write a book one day. I'm going to write a book one day. And one of the things I teach my kids is that if you have a dream, if you have a thought, and you put your heart into it, there's an old saying, if you put your heart into something, your body will follow. And so that's what I did. It took me about 10 years to finally finish the book. I had started it and it was really long. It was like 60 or 80 pages. And I went, I don't know if it's good enough. And, the whole coulda, woulda, shoulda thing. I could have done that. I should have mentioned that. And then I put it on the back burner. And then recently I decided, you know what? There's no real good books for new incoming teachers, how to have appropriate social interactions with the staff, how to fit in, classroom management, how to manage your stress. And so that's why I wrote and published the New Teacher's Instant Survival Guide, which is, hope you don't mind me mentioning this, it's available on Amazon.com. And it debuted at number 1 of new releases in the classroom management category a few weeks ago. And there's starting to be a little bit of buzz going around. And it was very edifying for me. It was very affirming for me as a person to finally, realize that dream that, hey, I can write a book. And it's an ebook form now, but I'm waiting for the author's proof, which is coming in this next week, so I can approve it. And then I can actually have paperbacks printed. But that book was really important to me because a lot of people coming into the teaching profession, they don't teach in the credentialing programs, to the best of my knowledge, how to get along and interact with your custodial staff and your office staff and how to deal with difficult situations with students and parents and how to create a happy classroom, and equally important, how to manage your stress, because there's been a lot of statistics that show that teaching is second in stress only to the job of an air traffic controller. So, I'm trying to give new teachers a little bit of a lifeline, if you will, so that they can have some tools when they go into the classroom and, kind of cheering them on. It's very motivational book. It's a quick read. As you mentioned, it's 35 pages. I wanted to give them something basically for the price of a Starbucks cup of coffee, and about the same time they would spend sitting and having coffee some Saturday morning, that they could get through it, that there's no fluff, just, really good. I like to call them knowledge bombs. So that was the kind of the impetus behind me wanting to write the book. And it's been so gratifying.
Yeah, that's really great to hear. And in fact, we don't mind at all. We'll definitely actually link it in the description. So to our listeners, like, even if you're not really into teaching, it's definitely worth checking out, because a lot of like the teaching principles can still be applied to other fields. For example, to our listeners, a lot of you have nonprofits where you teach like children or underprivileged children, etc., certain things. Like you might teach them some core classes, or you might teach them some arts, dances, like business, etc. So, or coding, for example. So like learning about how a teacher kind of approaches this, how a teacher makes like a classroom engaging, etc., can definitely have a lot of carryover into what you guys are doing. But back to Mr. Beltz, I kind of wanted to talk earlier about how you were saying arts education is kind of fizzling out in schools. If a school is having a budget concern, the first thing that always goes is the arts. Like music teachers are fired, the arts teachers are fired, etc. And especially with technology becoming such a pervasive part of our everyday life, like many people actually are arguing that the arts are almost becoming useless. Like having that skill is not helpful in any way. But what they don't realize is a lot of like the cultural advances are all promoted by the arts. So if you could talk about the importance of the arts and the importance of arts on culture and the importance of children learning arts, why is it still important to teach art in school?
Wow, thank you. And I wholeheartedly agree with everything that you said. What I do every Friday, no matter what, is art day. And to me and to a lot of my colleagues, kids and even adults, we need kind of a pressure relief valve, And when you do art, whether you're watercoloring or you're using other mediums like, colored pencils or markers or crayons or whatever, or mixing them, it's very important for people to kind of have that outlet for art. And, whether it turns into something like oil painting or pottery or ceramics or whatever, it's very relaxing. And given the situation we're in with the COVID situation, and I'm sure, you can fully appreciate this, when you're in your classroom, depending on what site you're at, everybody's masked up and everybody's got you're practically taking a bath in hand sanitizer, we got the big jugs, and, it's just a weird situation. So to kind of de-stress the situation, I think it's so important to have music and art and that sort of thing. And what I really love to do, matter of fact, it was funny, just yesterday, I like to go into YouTube, and they have these step-by-step, really fun, cool, easy art projects. And I'm sure you're familiar with Olaf from Frozen. We went ahead and we did a step-by-step drawing, illustration, art project of Olaf. And I was really encouraging the kids to mix their mediums. Guys might want to try watercoloring or colored pencils and markers and things. And then I always, the saying goes, we lead by example. I always do the art project by myself first, so I can experience it firsthand, what it's like for the kids, maybe where it might be a little difficult, or challenging. And the kids get a kick out of it. So yes, unfortunately, with a lot of us teachers, we're kind of having to reinvent the wheel. I had mentioned earlier about the history of American music, the little program I put together. And that's not in any syllabus or required instructional content that I'm aware of, although it is a part of the California, frameworks, as you mentioned about arts, dance and art and things like that. But I think the most important thing is that kids have a way to express themselves. And I think they do that a lot through art. And, I got to tell you, it's absolutely amazing what these kids do. I tell them, you don't have to do it exactly the way that I'm doing it or that the person on the YouTube video is doing it. And I said, I want you to put your own identity within it. And it's fun. It's funny in a cool way, because a lot of times what they'll do is sometimes they, like with Olaf, some of the Olafs were kind of all watercolored a dark blue, and some of them made him have a scarf. Some of the kids transformed him into a her and painted big red lips on him. And it was really cool. It was really, really neat. And, a lot of times we don't have control over what happens in our life. And I tell my students this all the time, guys, we don't have control over what happens to us, but we do have control about how we feel about ourselves. And one of the ways we can do that is always reassure ourselves that we're a good person, that we have people around us that love us, that they have not only a home family, but a school family. And that when we do art and when we have discussions and things, it's all about helping them be the absolute best they can be. And I can't sing the praises of art enough. As a little sidebar, my wife's also a teacher. She teaches 6th grade. And it was funny, several years ago, she's like, hon, you got to, do some art projects with the kids. And I'm like, I don't have any time. I've got to do, writing and grammar and reading and math and all this. She said, hon, she says, kids need that. They need that, and they need PE. And I thought about it, and she was absolutely right. And so, no matter what, every Friday, the kids know every Friday is going to be an art project of some sort. And anyway, I'm just really delighted. It makes me feel good when I see the kids just glowing doing their art project, because, when they're happy, I'm happy. And, there's just such a joy in art. School should not be a tedious, thing where you've got to do X, Y, and Z, which, we all have things we have to do, but we need to cut loose and have a little fun sometimes.
Like for me, just listening to you talking about the experiences you've had with your elementary school students, like I'm getting happy sort of, because like I remember my days in elementary school. Like obviously I'm a sophomore in high school now, but I remember, we would have art and music class once or twice a week. It was something like that. And like, in our music class, our teacher would bring his acoustic guitar, and then he would give us all boom whackers. Like I'm not sure if you're familiar with those, but they're like these plastic poles. And then when you hit it on like something, like each different color or each different length of them would produce a different note. So we would all play it like at the same time, and we would like create songs together. So like, and then we also had our art classes. So it's honestly just great, like still knowing, or it's honestly great to hear that like elementary students nowadays, they still love art and music, especially because so much stuff is online now. But like on that note, I feel like I would have to assume that, when COVID hit in 2020 and like 2021, like your classes probably changed drastically. So I wanted to know, like, how were you able to like overcome that? Or like was like having art and music classes still the same online?
Excellent question. And by the way, I wish I was a fly on the wall in your classroom when you were playing those, what do you call them, whackers? That would have been cool.
Boom whacker.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. And that's cool that your teacher brought in acoustic guitar. Yeah. As you can probably fully appreciate, since, you're a sophomore, the whole educational system and life as we know it just changed on a dime when the pandemic broke out. And when we went to distance learning, it was really kind of like one of my best friends, who's one of my dear colleagues, said, it's like flying the airplane while you're reading the instruction manual, and that's basically what it was like when we transitioned from in-person learning to distance learning. And the art and the music, it's so hard to teach through distance learning. I mean, we would give them independent assignments, but nothing beats or substitutes for being there in person and, watching the kids, with their brush strokes on their watercoloring or coloring in their chalk and whatnot, or asking for help. And so, with regards to the music theory and the art, the distance learning really kind of put a major wall, if you will, in regards to that. And so I'm just so relieved that we have kids in person now. And it was really difficult. I think, just as a little side note, I noticed, and probably you experienced this too, is that when we went into lockdown and schools were shut down and the pandemic was in full swing, a lot of kids felt isolated, angry, confused, sad, scared. Life as they knew it changed like that. And no longer could they go to a movie theater, a restaurant, go visit grandma, that sort of thing. And then, they're looking at this computer during class time and they see my face. And, hopefully it's not too bad of a visual for them when they see my face. But, it's talking heads, and it's just not the same. It's not the same teaching art or music or anything else. It was just incredibly difficult.
That's our show for today. Now roll the credits. High School Not So Much a Musical is hosted by Ayush Agarwal, Nitin Jaladanki, and Rishi Sinha. Narration by Samhit Padala. Music from Louis Luang Relaxation Cafe, Tune Pocket, and Infraction. If you like the show, please recommend it to your friends and family. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.